Hi guys. Okay, so this first video, um, I had a bit of a discussion with a friend of mine about the evil characters in Harry Potter, and we had some pretty interesting discussions. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but in my mind, Voldemort's not really evil. I mean, some of the things he does are pretty horrible, and the way he treats people is pretty horrible. But if we look at what happened to him in his life, it kind of explains why he's a bit horrible. And I know in the comments a lot of you probably aren't going to agree with me, but why don't we take a look at some of the things that led to how he became such a, well, psycho. Um, if we look at his, basically how he came into the world, um, if we start with, well, for first things, first, his mother had to use a love potion for his father to even fall in love with her. So, you know, it was doomed from the start, really, because she had to trick him into being in love with her. And then, so presumably, he would have been underneath or under the effects of that love potion when she fell pregnant with him. So, you know, I have seen things that have suggested that because of that, he was incapable of loving. I'm not too sure about that. But I do believe that because she tricked him, or tricked his father, into loving her, and then of course when she revealed what she'd done, his father left. Meanwhile, she was, I think, 6 months pregnant at the time. And then of course we have the fact that she turned up to an orphanage in London, and she was heavily pregnant and went into labour and lived long enough to name him, but that was it. And can you imagine growing up somewhere where nobody knows you at all? They don't know anything about you, just that your mother turned up, gave birth to you, and then died. And add to that that the way it's described in the book, um, well, it gives the impression that a lot of the kids that lived at the orphanage were scared of him, so and didn't want to hang around him, and that even the adults were not too keen on being around him. So he was really a loner for pretty much the first 10 or 11 years of his life, because all the muggles that he grew up with kind of weren't too keen on him. They were kind of scared of him. So, considering that they didn't want to spend any time around him, he kind of would have developed a bit of a, you know, bad experience with them, if you will. And then, of course, he went to Hogwarts, where, being in Slytherin and being quite a charming personality, he suddenly found all these kids his own age and some older and younger that listened to everything he said, and basically, for lack of a better word, they hung on his every word, and they, you know, not worshipped him exactly, but they believed everything he said and agreed with it to most of an extent. Um, so he went from having people that didn't want to talk to him at all, didn't want to hang out with him, nothing like that, to suddenly having people that couldn't be away from him, that couldn't leave him alone. And even the teachers, a lot of them, were impressed by how good he was, how clever he was. I mean, Dumbledore, of course, we know in the books, kept an eye on him because he wasn't too sure about what he was like, and had seen certain aspects of him when he first picked him up from the orphanage that suggested he was a bit dubious and worrying. But basically everyone else thought he was brilliant. So he went from having people that ignored him to suddenly everyone wanted to know him. They wanted to be around him. And that does a lot to a person's psychological when you've spent, the better part of 10, 11 years growing up, not knowing really anything about your family and having no one that wants to actually spend time with you. I mean, J.K. Rowling has said it herself. I've seen a video on the special features of, I think it's the last movie, where she says that um, because Harry at least had the first year or so of his life with his parents and having them care about him and love him, it helped him develop normal reactions to, you know, other people and interactions with other people. But because Voldemort lacked that and never knew his mother or his father until he killed his father, um, he lacked all of that and therefore could not make the proper interactions and relationships with people. And I know some people have said that there's a chance that, as I said before, that the love potion also potentially added to that he was unable to love. But as I said, I'm not too sure about that one, but it could have been. But I mean, from everything he went through as a child, it's no surprise that when he finally got to a point where he was in power and he was in charge, because of all those people that had ignored him and had treated him like he didn't count, like he didn't add up to anything, it's no surprise that he ended up becoming quite bitter and horrible. I mean, it's no excuse for what he did, killing all those people and trying to, you know, take over the world the way he did, but I think it kind of explains why he was a bit evil. Anyway, I'll probably have started a war in the comments, so feel free to voice your opinion, and until next time, see you guys.